This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. A pleasure to be joined by Hall of Fame inductee down here in London today, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. Ray, straight in on the plane, straight in speaking to us. How are you?
As they say, I'm lovely. Everything's brilliant, lovely. Nah, it's wonderful. It's been a trip. I look forward to these trips because it's been about 3 years since I've been back. And the people in the UK here, especially in England and London and Birmingham, treat me so well. So I really look forward to this trip. It's do you want me to hold this?
No, it's okay.
But I always look forward to these trips because I get to see friends that I've met through the last couple of years, and I haven't seen them for 3 years. So I look forward to it.
Since you retired from boxing, Ray, you've been a busy man, whether it be, media work like commentary, punditry, being in films, doing things like this, coming over and speaking to boxing fans. How easy did you find it to fill the void when you stopped fighting? Because a lot of fighters really struggle with that, but you've had a lot going on.
Well, it's funny because we were talking about that earlier, saying, people say, oh, you've reinvented yourself. And I like to say I evolved. Everything's an evolution, from child to an adult. So, it's an evolution. I evolved. I was an entertainer in one sport, and I like to consider myself an entertainer now. So to get into the entertainment business, to produce and film, look, it's just a natural evolution for me. But people always say, what's easier, getting in the ring, fighting, or entertainment business? I said, in the ring is much easier because you get in the ring, you win, you lose. It's in your control. The entertainment business, you control very little. You control your work, but what ends up on screen, you have no control over, unless you're the producer, which is why I started my production company, knowing nothing about production, because I have some control over my destiny. And but I enjoy it. I enjoy the chase. I enjoy taking something from nothing and putting it and seeing it through fruition and putting it up on screen. So that's the juice for me now.
Ray, I wanted to talk a bit about you and your career before we come on to the current boxing scene. Just to go back, we were talking off camera about how networks have changed. There's not many fighters on the wider TV networks these days, but back then you had a great story when you're coming into the pro ranks. Your father, his own ambitions were sort of cut short in the boxing game by World War II. You came in looking to carry that on and become world champion. How much did that story help you in your early days with getting on these networks and getting that exposure?
Well, first of all, you said it best. Everyone, I had a story, but I had a manager who knew how to exploit that. Not in a bad way. He knew. Look, people always said to me, "Oh, you were a TV fighter." Yeah, but I like to think I could fight a little bit too, because if you have a story, but you're a losing fighter, what does it mean? It don't mean that. There's no story. I like to think, being a winning fighter, the story gets bigger and better. So yeah, I wanted to win that title for my father. I wanted to do whatever it takes. I wanted to be my father, as a fighter, as a father, as a man, everything. So I went to New York like he did. And then you climb the ladder, and then the relationship we had, yes, networks exploit it in a good way. But again, if I'm a losing fighter, it means nothing. So, talking about network, we talked about what do you need? Fighters need to have a good story. And you got to have personalities. There's very few personalities. When I was fighting, we had a lot of personalities. Ray Leonard, Hector Camacho, Aaron Pryor. You had the Latin lover and Lex Arguello. I mean, you had so many great personalities. And then you had Marvin Hagler. Who was just a guy who started in the 70s and now finally became to fruition, his name and everything in the 80s. It just. It was a lot of good. It was a great time for boxing. Probably the best golden age of boxing over the last 50 years was the 80s.
I just want to talk about your trainer, Murphy Griffith, at the time when you turned over. I read that you said he was like your psychiatrist, your nutritionist, a second father, a trainer, all kind of rolled into one. You tell me about them early days. He said you were like a mini Marciano. How much did he kind of inspire you with the confidence he had in you and that toughen up process you had to go through in the gym as well?
Well, two things. I'm going to answer the first part. Where you always said, people always say to me, did you have a strength trainer? I said, yeah. Conditioning coach? I said, yeah. A dietitian? I said, yeah. And I said, and I also had a masseur, and I had a psychiatrist, sports psychiatrist. I said, it just happened to be the same guy. It's my trainer. That's what a trainer's supposed to be. He's supposed to be everything for that one fighter. Because how could a fighter and the trainer got to be in tune? They got to know each other. How could a trainer get to know his fighter if he's only doing one aspect? He's training him in the gym, but he don't know what the other guy's doing in strength coach, conditioning coach. He's everything. That's what a trainer's supposed to be. He's everything. So Murphy Griffith, he helped make me the fighter I am. He took, I guess way to explain it, he saw something in me in the amateurs. He thought I was the best prospect to come out of the amateur tournaments in 1979. He took, and he refined it, basically. You know, and he helped polish me. He showed me the things, you know, taught me what I had, kept what I had, and refined it. And taught me to keep moving my head, be aggressive, use that strength, but how to place my punches, how to use my aggressiveness to get the most out of it. You know, and that's what he taught me. In the pro game, you're in the hurting game. You got to be able to hurt people in this business. He says, you know, or you're not going to last long. And so he taught me how to finish opponents off. So he refined what he saw. But yeah, he was everything. He was everything to me. And I love that man as much as I could love anybody. And, you know, my parents entrusted you know, when he came to Youngstown and met my parents, they had to trust that man with my future. You know, my father, mother, everything. And, you know, it's just, you got to have belief in that person who's going to take you to the next level. You got to have a belief in your person who's going to direct your career. If you think you're going to be successful and you plan on being successful, hope to be successful, you could have that person, and it's got to be a total trust issue. And he trusted me to be the fighter that I thought I could be. See, the one thing I tell people, Griff will tell you, one thing I'm proud of is if you beat me, you beat me. I didn't beat myself. Meaning I didn't cheat myself. Griff didn't have to tell me to get up and do row work. He'd have to tell me to do the extra stuff in the gym. I did that on my own. That's self-motivation. Because if you don't got that, if you got it, people always tell me now, I got this fighter, but you know, I can't get him. I can't keep him off the streets. I can't get him in the gym. He won't get him to row. I said, get rid of him. Oh, but he's a headache. It's a headache you don't need. Because if you got to tell a fighter to do things, then you're just the wrong guy. You don't need a babysitter. He needs a trainer. And if he ain't self-motivated, you ain't gonna, no matter what you do, ain't gonna motivate him. So I was proud of that Griff never had to motivate me, and he was a great man. And I think we were a great team.
Ray, I wanted to go back to your world title winning night. I was watching the Art for Us fight last night. Best first round fight I've ever seen, I got to say. When he clipped you about 30 seconds in, what was going through your head at that moment? Do you remember? Because you threw about 200 punches within the next minute. It's
funny you say, because people always ask me, what was going through your mind? I said, what I was going through is I was just trying to make it through the round. I wasn't thinking about, because one thing Griff taught me, when the guy, you get caught, one of two things you're going to do. You're going to cover up or you're going to fire back. I chose to fire back. Now, if you cover up, a lot of guys are going to get on top of you and they try to weather a storm. I chose to fire back. Because a lot of times come and you fire back, you break the guy up a little bit. It stops his momentum. So that's what I chose to do. And I was in great shape, so I was able to catch myself, regain myself again. But then just keep throwing punches. But all I was trying to do was get through the round. Focus on getting through the round and then come back the second round. Because each round is a different war. You win them one round at a time. You don't look at all 15 rounds. You want one round at a time. Just win the round. If you win more rounds, you can bet you're going to win the war. So, but I just happened to fire back and catch him, and I dropped him. And as soon as he went down, I was like a shark smelling blood. That was it.
I appreciate one moment was a lot more euphoric and one a lot more reflective, but which do you look on most fondly and most proud of when you look back now, the night you won the world title or Hall of Fame induction?
No, winning the world title. Because there is no Hall of Fame induction without that. There's nothing else besides that. And I've realized my lifelong dream of doing that was everything. You just said it. It was, people always say, what was that feeling like? I said, you used the word euphoric. It was an out-of-body experience almost.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, which I was reading about that I didn't know of until I'd kind of seen it. I read about you sparring with Bob Dylan down in the gym. Can you tell me a bit about sparring with Bob Dylan?
Yes. We had the same dentist. So I went to see my dentist, and he said to me, Ray, one of my patients is a big fan of yours. He said, Bob Dylan. I said, oh, man, Bob Dylan. I love his music. I never understood it, but I loved it. And he said, Bob owns a gym. He said he wants to know if you'd come work out with him. I said, sure. So he said, I'll have his assistant get in touch with you. So she did, and asked if I'd come to the gym. And I said, yeah, I'd work out with Bob. So I went in there, and I said, Bob wanted to spar. I said, okay, I'll just move around a little bit, and we'll move around. And I said, Bob, whatever you do, just throw your punches. Don't worry about it. If you catch me, you catch me. But, and Bob's like steady. Bob comes out there. He's real steady. He don't change speeds. It's steady, But he'll go 6, 7 rounds. He does it. He'll go and then he'll go bag work. So he's wonderful. But anyhow, he was throwing his punches. He's a little hesitant. I said, Bob, throw your punches. If you catch me, it's my fault. So after a second round, but I got to let you know I'm there too. So, stick out a jab, tap him to the body here and there. After a second round, he came over to me. He said, Ray, can you lay off some of the headshots? I still got a few more songs left in there. I said, oh, yeah, okay, no problem. So after we got done sparring, I said, Bob, I'm assuming you're joking. I hope like hell you're joking. He said, I'm just joking. But the funny thing is, it was that the year later on, he won the Grammy for Time Out of Mind. So after that, I said, Bob, I didn't get no credit on the album for laying off the headshots.
Just to come on to modern day boxing, obviously when you started your career, I think within the first year you'd fought more than a dozen times. At one point you were fighting 3 times within sort of 12 days. What do you make of it when you see nowadays, you see prospects coming through and fighting 3-4 times a year at the start of their career?
Well, no, it makes no sense. You got to be active. I turned pro in October of '79. I had 4 fights before the end of the year. My first full year as a pro in 1980, I fought 12 times. So, and then at the beginning of, and then I fought again, March was the first year, March, April, May of 1981. March, April, May, and then July, and then September. So, I fought the one thing I'm proud of is more than anything is I was an active fighter, but one thing I'm most proud of, as a champion, for 2 years, from May of 82 to June of 84, I had 7 title defenses. That's one every 3 months. So I'm very proud of that, and that means a lot. I think those fighters, these guys now, they fight once or twice a year. That's why they're fighting late into their 30s. I wouldn't want to be in my 30s getting smacked in the head. I would not want to be doing that. And but you can't develop a legacy. There's no legacy there, because look, when they're gone, we're ain't gonna remember their names. And I was once asked. I'll just say this. Going off one of those tangents now. I was once asked. I guess said, you and Ray Leonard were at the same time. What do you think? You and Ray Leonard. I said, let me put it this way. I said, Ray Leonard was like Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando at one time was considered the greatest actor of his generation, right? But at the end of his career, he did a lot of crap. Ray was considered the finest pound-for-pound fighter of his time. He's the finest fighter of my generation. But at the end, he came back and had some crap. I said, I'm more like James Dean. James Dean did 3 films. But I said, I only fought 5.5 years. But they still talk about my career. So I'm flattered, I'm honored. They still talk about James Dean, right? So Ray Leonard and Marlon Brando, I'm more like James Dean. Because, we were contemporaries, but different. And they got a kick out of that one. But look, Ray's special. But I mean, it's just that whole generation, that whole era of fighters was the best. I'm so honored to be proud of that.
Just to come on to this era, in your weight division, we're of course edging towards undisputed lightweight fight, George Kambosos and Devin Haney. Looks like it's going to be happening in Australia. Who wins and how, in your opinion?
Well, I don't, first I want to admire Haney for going over there. Not that he has a choice, because he's got to. If you want the title, you got to go after it. But a lot of guys now, a lot of fighters won't go. They'd rather wait and sit it out because they don't think they can get a fair shake. Haney's going over to challenge himself, and I love that about this guy. I don't know. I don't know if Haney has enough of that, enough firepower to keep Kambosos off him, because based off when he fought Lopez, who's probably the biggest puncher in that division, and he dropped Lopez early on, kept the pressure. Then he got dropped later on, but came right back. I love what I see about Kambosos. I love his determination. Now that he's going to be fighting from his home country, he came over here to win that title, and he did. So I love the fact that Haney's challenging himself to go there. But I just got to go Kambosos. I don't know enough about Haney. I guess I don't know if he has enough pop to keep Kambosos off, but Kambosos can fight, and is a strong, tough, rugged guy. So I'm going to always go with the champ.
Something I wanted to ask you about, Ray, that we were speaking about off camera again. You were talking about your admiration for Tyson Fury and almost this charismatic personality, this throwback personality he has. I just wanted to ask you about him in particular, but your favourite fighters of this generation, and why Tyson Fury stands out as a serious player in that mix for you.
Well, for Tyson Fury, because he's got a personality. Boxing lacked personalities for years. Even Mike Tyson wasn't Mr. Personality, but he had this aura about him that kept him. But after him, Holyfield was not a personality. And everybody after that wasn't. Klitschko's aren't personalities, So Tyson Fury brings that back. He has a personality. He talks as good as anybody. He backs it up. You gotta love it. And you just like, that's what boxing needs, And he sings and all that. You just love that. I love all that stuff because that intrigues people about this guy. Intrigues people about gets them interested in boxing again. So you want to watch for whatever reason, to see him get beat, to see him win, whatever, to see him sing. Who knows? But you watch. So that's a good thing that he's champion again. And so I look forward to watching him again. He's entertaining. He's entertaining.
Ray, you've got quite a lot of media to get through today, so I'm going to leave you with one final question. You've got, obviously, this dinner event coming up. It's going to be yourself and Joe Calzagi, one of our finest ever fighters. Yes. You must be looking forward to working with him. And how can people come along and get involved as well? Well,
I was going to say, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be at the Premier Sport in Cannock, Birmingham. I love saying that word, Birmingham. And it'll be Thursday night. They're calling it a tie night. Myself and Joe Calzagi. It's a dinner event. You can get tickets. I'm assuming you can get tickets there, right? Or book them in advance on Premier. How do they go to? Bar Sport. Premier Suite. Bar Sport Premier Suite in Birmingham. And yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting Joe Calzagi. He's one of my favorite fighters. Look, my two favorite fighters at the UK. Kenny Buchanan, who I got a chance to meet at the previous dinners, and unfortunately he won't be there this time, and Joe Calzagi. How could you not? This guy, I loved him, man. You know, forget that he's of Thai descent, which is a lovely thing to see, but he could fight. And he beat some of our biggest and best fighters. He beat B-Hop, he beat Roy Jones, he beat Jeff Lacey, he beat everybody. And he could fight, man. This guy could fight. So I'm really looking for. I was a big fan. I became a big fan of his, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him. So if you want to meet Joe Calzagi and myself, I'd love to meet him. People treat me so well in the UK. Again, at the Premier Suite, Bar Sport Premier Suite in Cannock, Birmingham.
Ray Mancini, fantastic audition for Peaky Blinders. A pleasure. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.